Okay, Carl Weathers, dead at 76. Is that what it was? Yeah,
Yeah,
76. God, that's only
young.
28 years. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Justin and I recorded something the other night. We did the Star Trek experience at Universal Studios in Hollywood back in 1988, which was where they took people from the audience and they put you on the sets and they had you like record a bit from Star Trek and then they interspersed it with clips of the movies. And so we were watching it like together for the first time and like literally that tape is 36 years old this year. But we're watching it and Spock dead, Uhura dead, Scotty dead, Bones dead. But yeah, everybody in there, I was like dead, 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 and it's like this is one of the things that I think sucks about getting older is that you start to see it. And the latest one we just lost is Carl Weathers, who, if the name doesn't sound familiar, I looked it up to see. The man was he has over 80 IMDb television and movie credits,
Oh
but
yeah.
obviously probably most well known as Apollo Creed in the original Rocky quadrilogy.
Because I think he died in the second
Well,
one,
oh,
didn't
wait.
he?
Well, and here's the thing
Or the
too.
third one.
These movies are going on between 40 and 50 years old. So sorry for the spoilers if you haven't seen it, but just know ahead of time. Obviously, he also was in Predator, supporting role
Yep.
against Arnold Schwarzenegger. I also remembered that he was the voice of Combat Carl in the Toy Story franchise.
Combat Carl's seen things, horrible things.
He's not just like some actor from the '80s. Like he's currently in or was in The Mandalorian.
So going back to what you just said, he spans the generational content of the stuff that seemed older to us growing up. I'm not sure when I first saw Rocky. I was probably no more than like 7 or 8. I'm sure I wasn't watching it at 5 years old, but that looks old to us now. And Mandalorian looks new. And in 40 years, in whatever holographic podcast kids today now are going to be watching, they're going to remember this old actor from The Mandalorian. Do you know how he got what he did before he was Apollo Creed?
Wasn't he like a carpenter or something?
He's not a carpenter.
Oh no, I'm thinking of somebody else. Maybe that was
That
Jesus.
was probably Jesus. Yes.
Oh
G.
yeah, what did he do?
No, he was a linebacker for the then Oakland Raiders before they were the Oakland Raiders again before they're now the Las Vegas Raiders. Meanwhile, with that one stint being the LA Raiders, it was the 1970 season, I believe. He ended up playing 8 games under John Madden, and he was a linebacker. And one game into the 1971 season, he actually got told by somebody in the locker room to grab his playbook because John Madden wanted to talk to him. And of course, that's bad news for an athlete. Bring your playbook to the coach. They said they were cutting him from the team because he was too sensitive, which in an article I looked up, he said that kind of gave him a chip on his shoulder because he was like a sensitive person, but not sensitive in the sense that he wasn't competitive. Apparently, he grew up doing a lot of sports. He actually did a couple of, as they called them, or they probably still call them, blaxploitation films in 1975. And then he got cast over another famous boxer in the Rocky role. And the rest is basically history. That kind of propelled him into acting and television.
So what I'm thinking here is there's been a lot of people recently that have been involved in like newer things and then have died off. And it's crazy because like these are things that are kind of ongoing and you're wondering, okay, what are they gonna do now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like so what was his name?
In
And I see his
Mandalorian.
face, I can't remember his name. Oh, yeah, well, he's one of them, like for Mandalorian, right? Because he was kind of a big part of that, like in season 3, right? Like he saved their world or whatever. Spoiler, sorry. Against the pirates. So yeah, he's kind of a reoccurring character there. But like, so what's going to happen now to him? You know what I mean? Like, so they can't use him anymore. So like, how do they write around that? And then he's had Lance Riddick died,
Yes.
right? So like, not only is he on TV shows, but he's also in like video games and everything. He was in Horizon Zero series.
Destiny.
So, yeah, and he just died. So like for instance, in Alan Wake 2, they're making a Remedy verse basically. So like Alan Wake is now connected to the game Control. It's connected to the game Quantum Break.
Right.
They took characters from those and added them to Alan Wake 2. And so like the character of Mr. Door is actually a character that Lance Riddick played in Quantum Break, but because he died, they had another guy playing. But you can kind of see like he kind of resembles him and everything, so you can kind of see what's supposed to be. It's about different when you're doing like an ongoing movie series or show, because
Yeah.
that's kind of like
So let me just run down some of the movies that you don't realize like how much Carl Weathers uh acted. Like we remember him from Rocky and Predator, and I know he was in Heat of the Night. Never seen the movies, but I've seen that mentioned numerous times from some of the tweets that have gone out that people enjoyed him in that role. But whether it be voiceover work or acting, here's some of the things he was in: Toy Story 4, a lot of Adam Sandler movies, Happy Gilmore.
I don't remember Happy Gilmore.
What? How do you not remember Happy Gilmore?
All of Adam Sandler's movies kind of start to
Run
fade
Together.
together for me because it's always the same thing. I was about to say, isn't that the one where the mom doesn't want to play football? Oh no, that's the golf one.
In Happy Gilmore, yeah, he played. He ended up coaching Adam Sandler, but if I recall correctly, he only had like one arm. What else was he in?
Oh yeah.
Obviously, the Rocky series. Wow, Breaker. Why does that movie sound familiar? I'm not going to go on a tangent. 1985. Predator. Like I said, if you look at his IMDb page, he has over like 80 credits, including producing and directing credits. So he's one of those guys where you don't think about him, and then suddenly he pops up in a movie, and it's like, oh, hey, that's Apollo Creed. Like we knew him more as Apollo Creed than Carl Weathers. And then, of course, what was it in Mandalorian? Greef. Greef. What was his name?
I can't remember all those Star Wars
Because
names.
Star Wars
New
names are
ones.
basically made up of consonants thrown together from a random bucket of letters. Greef Karga.
Okay.
Sounds like a dish you might order at a fancy foreign restaurant. I'll have the
I'll have the grief card.
how is your Greef Karga tonight? Is it the chef's special? Yeah, but like you said, he and the Mandalorian character, Pedro Pascal's character, became close over that last season. So do they just replace him with a different actor? Do they have an unceremonious off-screen kill? Well, think of it this way: you saw the recent Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I haven't seen that.
You have not seen it. Okay. Well, the new
I'll see.
movie's coming out this March. That is a follow-up to that one. So I'll put it this way. In the very beginning of the movie, you see somebody driving a truck ahead of something to this farmhouse. It turns out it's Egon Spengler, and the actor Harold Ramis, obviously, who played him, passed away a number of years ago. So what they did was they basically had him, the silhouette looked very similar, the hair and everything else, not the way they got the height. You never really saw his face. Everything you saw was a side profile. It was neck down, sitting in a chair, sitting in the truck. It was running, but you have the camera kind of cuts off shoulder high. That's pretty much it. At the very end of the movie, they do a very well done, I think very tasteful AI computer generated Egon Spengler character in ghost form. So he's hazy and he's gray, but it's him.
Do they have him actually throughout the movie as a character?
No, there's no like flashbacks to him as a character. It's like the first 5 minutes of the movie that kind of sets up why these new characters are now going to the farm that Egon once lived on. And it's really good. You know, Ghostbusters
Oh,
is
so he goes to the farm, and then throughout the rest of the movie, he's not in it. Till the end,
spoiler. Obviously, spoiler. He dies in the
Oh,
movie.
you know what? Never. Don't tell me. Obviously, he
dead,
dies if
yeah,
he's coming
right.
back as a ghost.
Because as a ghost. But
I'm just wondering if he dies at the beginning, or if they, like you said, they show him
yes,
from the shoulder
no,
up.
they
And blah, blah,
actually
blah, blah,
give him a death in the movie, so you
Okay.
see in story canon what happens to Egon.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of some other movies that we've lost people in because sometimes they just recast a role and they don't say anything about it, and a lot of times
Yeah,
that
like
actor or
Iron Man.
actress, yeah, just completely not the same, but everything goes on business as usual, and that always feels a little bit off. I think one of the more famous examples of that, and I go back to the show, like classic shows in the 90s. Now think about this: Family Matters with Urkel, right? There's a
Mhm.
show that's over 25 years old. The last season, they just recast the mom,
Well,
and that's
didn't they
happened
do that with
before.
Fresh Prince too?
Who in the Fresh Prince?
Was it Aunt
Was it
Vivian?
Aunt Vivian too?
Yeah, they
It might have
switched her
been,
out.
yeah. Did he die in Predator? Did this character die?
Yeah, he died.
Yeah, he died.
Everybody dies in that except for Schwarzenegger.
Of course. Well, you can't beat
Yeah.
the Governator.
I remember he gets his arm blown off in that one scene, and he's shooting a gun. Oh,
Like this is one of the things that I think sucks about getting older is that you start to see it. And 20 years ago, I wouldn't have really thought about this too much. I think the death, I remember the death that hit me the first time a death hit me, and I was like, "Holy shoot, that person's not here anymore on the planet." And I don't know why. I love his music, not the biggest fan in the world, but was David Bowie. I remember
Yeah.
like exactly where I was. I was playing poker at the MGM Grand. I know what seat I was in. I remember looking it up on the phone and seeing like David Bowie died. And I was like, holy cow. Like for some reason that got me because that was something that I grew up with. And of course, we lived through Kurt Cobain killing himself, but that was a little bit different, right? Become popular in the early 90s, gone by the mid 90s.
Yeah, like David Bowie's someone that like was actually there before we were even born
Yeah.
making music, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned I was listening to my wife and I were in the car listening to Led Zeppelin, but this song came out and I was talking about how old it is. And we looked it up and it like came out the same month that I was born. I was like,
Oh, wow.
and the same month and year that I was born. I was like, wow, man. Like that, like this song's like, almost 50 years old.
Yeah. Well, I think about this too is when I would hang out at somebody's house and their dad was playing like Styx or Foreigner or Kansas, like how old that music sounded to me. And now everything we grew up with is about as old as that was when I was listening to it. So,
Yeah,
gr-
like the classic rock of today's generation is like the rock of our generation. Like Metallica,
it's
they're like
classic
they've been playing
rock.
for like 40 years now.
Yeah. Well, to be
It's crazy.
Guns N' Roses, like all these bands that were
Yeah.
huge, huge. And now if you look at Axl Rose, he looks like an old man who needs to be out on the porch just yelling at the clouds
Yeah.
because it's scary. I remember I saw him in concert maybe like wow, 10 years ago. He looked old and I swear he kept going backstage in between bits of songs where there was like an extended solo that wasn't normally there. And he's probably in the back like huffing on oxygen masks or something.